Welcome to the Smorgasbord Podcast, episode 40. We're talking about a variety of different topics, uncensored, unedited, and unfiltered. Um, as you can see, I'm in a different area. I am in a hotel in Florida. Um, now that the Happy New Year's to everyone out there. Now that the New Year's, now the New Year's upon us. I would like to officially um talk about my 2020 year. Um, Overall by month in detail. Some things I'm going to probably repeat, some things I haven't said. Um, well, I don't know how long this will be. Depending on the length, it might be less than an hour. If it is less than an hour, it'll be on Instagram and YouTube. If it is longer, it'll be just on YouTube, and I'll let people know. And I'll post a link so people could watch it. Um, Starting off in the first the first time it wrapped around. Um, it seems so long ago that happened. Well, that New Year's for this year seemed so long yet so short. Uh, I remember when it first turned New Year's, I had suspected something big. How history has shown is that like every decade there was a 20, there would be something big. Usually a sickness is what I was thinking. Is what I was thinking. 1620, 1720, 1820. There was something big. So 2020 wrapped around. It was the year of the rat in China. There's a disease on the rise called COVID, coronavirus. Didn't think nothing of it. But I figured that's what it was going to be. Started off as every normal year, there was some bad things, the fires, and it seems so long ago that everyone thought it was a phase. There was fires in Australia, Amazon rainforest was on fire. No one really talked about that. Then I remember waking up on a weekend, wake up to my mom calling me. She had told me, hey, Kobe's dead. And I was like, well, what do you mean Kobe's dead? I'm like, Kobe died. It's on the news. And I thought she was looking at some fake TMZ uh, source, so I immediately said, that's not real. And she was like, no, it is. Go look. So I was like, okay. So I went and looked, and sure enough, all these news stations saying Kobe died, 42. This was right after LeBron beat his scoring record. So like this was a little bit convenient that uh that it happened, and it was a surprise, and it was a tragic way how it happened. It was a tragic way. I never really was the biggest fan of Kobe Bryant. I loved him like everybody else loved him, but I wasn't a big fan, so it didn't hurt. But it did suck, and it didn't. It almost didn't feel real. Even as now, as the new year comes, it doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel as prominent. You know, and that seems so long ago, and it seemed like it was a different month, but he died January 26, 2020, along with his daughter and multiple other people in that helicopter crash. It was a very interesting thing, and it was like, okay, this was bad. It gave a lot of people something to think about as men, as fathers, as children, as family to think about. I do not remember much from the beginning of this year. So that is all I have for January. February, I believe, I don't really remember. February, I believe that's when Corona went global. I believe that's when they hit Italy. I'm if and I was getting closer and closer and closer, and that was when the decision was that Donald Trump made was to keep this to keep it open, to keep open the country and not shut it down. Which honestly, it was going to be in my opinion, it was going to be a lose-lose situation when he made that decision. It was either going to be he gets backlash for not letting anybody in, and our economy crashes, or he did what he did, risk people getting sick and risk it coming in here, which was almost indefinite. That if he did make that choice, and just deal with it then. And then he decided to let that in, so he was stuck in a rock and a hard place. And that's when for the world, when it hits America, when shit happens with America, it's seen as it hits global because that's the country a lot of people look at nowadays. So when it hit us here, that's when the jokes stopped and things got serious. And though it was still happening in the States, nothing else happened. Nothing really took place for me personally. Things were happening in other states, all up in the north because it was cold weather, but everything else didn't seem like anything was happening. I do not remember the rest of February. It seems like 2 years ago that this all started. In reality, it's all been 1 year. It's like as if someone were to suppose it was supposed to stick all the events of this year into the decade, but instead messed up and pressed it all into one. March uh, was when the NBA shut down. It was when the NBA shut down, when sports started shutting down, when events in cities and that you thought would never stop stopped in America, in the United States specifically. Las Vegas shut down, businesses crumbled. I remember I don't can't recall if spring break was in the March or April. But if it was March or April, we got off school early. All of us very excited, including myself, about going home early. About little did we know that would be the last time in a long time we'd be back in the building. I also remember the specific time when this whole started. My father was very scared and very sick at the time. He thought he had it. I don't to this day I believe he didn't have it. I believe it's just him not taking good care of himself. Remember, he was very sick and he wanted to see me. And he usually was flaked out on things. He usually didn't show up to things. We didn't see him for long periods of time. So the pandemic didn't make anything different. Um, I do not remember if this was before or after when I started this whole podcast because I started this podcast March 26th. I remember seeing him looking very sick, very sick. I saw him. We talked for a while, for a little bit. Then he said he had to go home as he wasn't feeling well. I then remember watching him throw up his guts and blood all over the street. I remember when that happened. I remember seeing him throw up and it was pink and red all over the street in front of the hill of the house. I remember seeing the panic look in my mom's eyes. I remember being like, okay. There was no fear. There was no fear when this moment happened. I understood what happened. And He said I have to go. He left, you know, to this day we don't know what happened with that. We think he's just, smoking or whatever. Remember that event caused a lot of conflict that bled over into April. That his stubbornness and him being foolish led to conflict between my mother and me and him. Remember talking on the phone with him after these events. He apologized and said, "You have to go to the doctors. You have to go to the hospital." He's like, "You don't think I've tried?" I said, "No, I don't think you've tried." He says, "I've been taking care of myself," because he believed he had it. And him being like, "I've been taking soup," and I told him, quote, "Chef Boyardee and Campbell's ain't gonna save you. You threw up your blood and guts. You need to go to the hospital." He never really liked doctors. He To this day, he's fine. He looks healthier now, but I don't know. I never really talked about it on here. I told very few people, so I guess this is something to talk about. It's the main thing I remember from March. I don't remember much. April, I believe, was when spring break. I don't know. I just remember being at home when school for my freshman year was very interesting because it was more, you do an assignment, you finish it, you're done with school by day. It wasn't classes. It was all such a new thing. And I remember that long spring break and that realization that we're not going back the rest of the year. I personally had no concern. I personally had no concern. I understood what was happening and I had made peace with that. And I understood that we have to do something within ourselves to just sustain our education, that we wouldn't be seeing each other for a while. That a while ago, that this will test many friendships, this will test many relationships. This will be a time of fear, a time of panic, and a time of concern. I don't remember much of the early months. I, I'm sure people who probably watched this podcast from the time I started can retell the events better than I ever could. I believe it was the summer months, May, June, July, that, though this did feel like the longest summer ever, that started in the spring. I think those were when the riots started. George Floyd, the police brutality. I remember Black Lives Matter. I remember watching the news with my mother and my friend Derek, who's been on this podcast one time before. I remember watching them destroy downtown Atlanta. I remember there's just them looting and lighting cars on fire and the chaos and how much of animals they looked. I remember the outrage of people. I remember the division it caused amongst my friends. On top of these times in the political scene and all these movements that was going on, I remember what I like to call the summer depression. I remember amongst my friends, amongst my peers, I had during this time I had built a friend group. Now I've talked about these friends multiple times on the show. Some of them have been on. I had built this. I must take you back farther. My mother always told me one day I would find a tribe of people to call my own, a friend group. They all have. Problem was I never fit in with nobody. I didn't want to fit in with everybody, but I never tried. I was always myself, no matter what. And my knowledge was so vast in so many different areas. I couldn't just talk to you about one thing. A typical day with me in eighth grade would have consisted of me playing basketball, talking about nothing but basketball throughout the first. hour and a half of my day before school, and then they till school started. Then I could go sit with Alan, even though he was part of the basketball as well. He could talk about anime and politics and all that. Then I could go to band and talk about music and, jump to all these groups of people, types of people, the emos, the jocks, the smart kids, talk about science and technology. You could talk about all these things. Yeah, there was never one thing that truly stuck. I longed for that group. For a while, my mother always told me the same thing. Oh, don't worry, you'll get it. When I said I didn't have an elementary school, they said we'd get it in middle school. Middle school was hell for me. Middle school was absolute hell. For her telling me, don't worry, we'll get better in high school. High school first year, same thing, same thing. Tried to find it, thought I found a tribe, just found it wasn't a place for me. Throughout the summer months, I assembled a group. I must take you the timeline to remember the places, the moments of the summer. So I remember spending much the first half of that summer alone. No, no, no. I remember I remember Sunny reaching out to me because I had met her one time with Reagan. I don't know if I ever mentioned Reagan on here. I believe I have. She was friends with Sunny, and we've mentioned Sunny on the show before. She reached out to me during these months because I met her one time at a football game when I was in marching band. And I remember her messaging me saying you're pretty cool and whatever. We discussed, we talked about politics, our opinions on things. We learned much about each other in these months. And I remember saying we need to hang out. You and me and Reagan, whatever. You and me, just need to go out. We need to hang out sometime. We agreed. We hung out for a good part of that summer, and it was good. It was good. I also remember times where I understood that there were dark times that I was in. I knew I was already in a dark time, but specifically with the people I hung out with, there was always a dark underlying thing I could always see in people. I always could see that in people, rather how hard they think they can hide it and how they think they say, however they say they're fine, boy or girl. I mean, I can sniff it out like a bloodhound. Both of them seemed very upset at that time. At that time, it was a very, but the times we enjoyed. There was never. It was an interesting time. I then remember for a while when the summer first hit, I had this friend named Alex. I had met him during school along with Reagan. I had meant to text him and be friends with him much earlier. I had like lost his number in the shuffle because I had lost my phone. I had dropped my phone in the water of the pool. So I got a new one. Like didn't have his number. I found his Instagram. I finally found it near this second half year of summer. And I texted him and I said, hey, you and me should hang out. And I told him this, because see he was down. He said he was down. At the same time of all that going on, because I reached out to him because of the fact that Reagan had to leave the state soon to go to someplace for school. And I wanted to hang out. And she was friends with Alex before I was friends with him, and I was trying to get them to hang out, getting all of us to hang out. I reached out to Alex, and at the same time, I reached out to my old friend Alan. Alan, I've always been friends with him. I've known him since the beginning of middle school. A while before this whole thing started, I said there will be a time in life where, because of who we are and because of the type of people we are, that we give, and we give. That There'll be time when you realize that stuff will not be, we won't be, we won't receive as much as we've been given. Not even half of it. We probably won't receive any. I want you to know that we prepare for that so that we can understand and be there for each other. He said he understood that. I knew he didn't. So when I finally messaged him, I said, when you're not busy, you and me need to hang out. You and me need to get out the house because he's always been, his mom and dad had him working, whatever. I still wanted him to be a kid. I told him, I said, you and me should go out, hang out. And I remember the first time I saw him outside of school was for, so I also saw Alex outside of school, and all three of us hit it off pretty well. We hit it off pretty well. And through this time, I was jumping back and forth between the group of Alex, Alan, or just Alan, and me, and Sunny Reagan. I also remember becoming good friends with two people named Becca and Tamel. Now, Becca and Tamel were very different. They were very special. I met them in a very unique way. I had I had met Tamel through the YMCA. We had connected very deeply because of the fact that he was a very angry person. I had a lot of patience. So I truly, like, my patience was had the ability to understand that and who he was, and he kind of truly vented and truly looked at me as family. He then asked out this girl at the time named Becca, who I had on the podcast before. They both been on here one time. And she was an interesting soul. I could tell how I became close with her was a very interesting way. It's a way that I won't forget ever, probably in my life. I remember when Tamel told me that he wanted to ask her out on the same day of his birthday, and I told him to do it. I think they were together, and I guess she heard many things about me. I heard some things about her. We'd never really talked. I then remember one day, it's a very beautiful girl. When one day I looked at her Instagram, she always smiled with this beautiful smile. But I remember looking into her eyes, and despite that smile, I saw sadness. I saw pain. I saw loneliness. I saw something disturbed from within. So I messaged her. I messaged her, and can't remember if I still have that message, but I do remember it going on along the lines of, "Hey, I know I know this is probably random, but I just asked her, I said, yo, are you okay?" And she was like saying, yeah, she was good. Let me see if I can find it. There we go. Yeah, I believe. It was, there were multiple times I had this moment with her, basically along the lines of, hey, are you okay? Yeah, why do you ask? It was random, it was out of the blue. There's no context, we've never spoken before. She knew that I knew her about her from Tamel. I knew that she knew me from Tamel. He spoke highly about me. He spoke highly about her. He truly loved this girl. They were great for each other. And it and I remember her just saying, I just feel like there's something. in you that I feel like you're dealing with something personal, family or related or whatever. And I feel like, you have no one to talk to about it. So I say, so I don't want to overstep, but I offer my friendship for you. If you want to talk about anything, anything of your personal life or whatever, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. I offer that to you. And the first of her response was, "How did you know?" Who? No, she said. Excuse me. She said, "Who told you? Who told you?" She said to me. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, who told you? Like, did Tamel say something to you?" And I'm like, "Was I right?" And you were spot on. To this day, that girl believes I have powers, and it's the funniest thing in the world. But being able to read people like that's a very interesting thing. Because yes, people can read people. That's not the part I'm talking about. It's about about me. I've gotten it down to the T where it's so accurate it scares people. And she found that annoying in a funny way. How she would fake being happy, say I'm okay all the time, even through text. I can imagine what her face looked like and be like, talk to me, what's up? I can tell. Da, 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 da. She's like, damn you and your powers. Um, I remember her and Tamel honestly forming a bond, a very strong bond. So this was three groups of that we were part of. Three groups I was part of. You know, they were all going through their dark times, and I had helped Becca and Tamel in tremendous ways. They in the ways that they have helped me as well. Um, and and we'd talk for hours and we'd be on the phone together, and I truly enjoyed that time. I truly enjoyed that time with them. Remember they had broken up for a brief time because she wanted to work on herself. Remember she messaged me that. And I remembered the sadness on her face as well. The sadness on her face that she didn't want it to happen, but she said she had to work on herself. And she said, "Was I a bad person for this? Is this the right thing to do?" And I'm like, does he make you better?" She said, "Yes." She said, "But I need time to work on myself." I said, "I understand that. It makes sense." So for a brief time, they had broken up. And when they broke up, I became closer to her because I talked to her more. And I remember me because of me knowing how they thought, knowing how their brains worked. I played this game to get them back together because both I could tell even when she worked on herself, she longed for him back, and he obviously didn't want it to happen because it wasn't. They both wanted each other. They both made each other better. I remember playing this one night of Truth or Dare, and I just asked him flat out, "Do you still like Becca? Do you still like Tamal? Tamal, do you still like Becca? Would you, if you were to ask you that right now, would you say yes?" She said yes. Likewise to him. I then left it alone. Later, she texted me and she was like, "Do you think we should get back together?" And I'm like, "I believe so, if you're ready, because of the fact of you two make each other better and you complement each other very well. I believe you two can honestly make each other better as people, not just as boyfriend and girlfriend, but as people. You guys are better for each other." They ended up getting back together. That was a funny time when she did that. If you fast forward now, that whole dynamic fell apart. It fell apart because Tamel moved away to another part of Georgia. Becca's father didn't like me or him very much because we honestly could. He wasn't a very nice person, and we could tell he was a very nice person. we taught her more about herself and subsided her anger better than he ever could in his entire life that he's done. And I have helped them more, their words, not mine, than the parents or therapists that they've been given. And that's not to sound like I'm a holier than that person. It's just what I've been told, and that's just what I've looked at. That in times like these, you know, people find help in the most weird and the strangest ways. They're officially broken up. They've gone their separate ways, but and I no longer talk to Becca that much or to Mel because of the distancing. Her father didn't want us talking. Because, but to them, I hope they're doing really well, and I would like to rekindle that friendship somewhere down the road. But back to the main two groups. So after that whole thing fell apart, I fast forward a little bit. Let me go back. One of these nights where it was me, Alan, and Alex, this was the night I started putting the friend group together. Alan had talked about this girl named Megan. Now, there are multiple Megans I've talked about in this podcast. There's the Megan that was with my friend Justice for a long time that used me as an emotional sponge, but this Megan is also is the one I'm talking about that influenced Alex in a negative way. I'll get to that later on. This all still taking place in the summer months, May, June. I think this was June, July. We were on, we were over, we recorded a podcast actually that night, I believe. We definitely recorded that night. We did not sleep that night. It was a very interesting night. They said they didn't want to talk about it. I will save that story for another time. But we did not sleep that night. And that night, we also called this girl Megan. Alan had told me about her, so she was pretty chill, but she didn't really know him that much. We had a brief conversation. Alex was bugging out. This was him when he was at his wildest. And she didn't really, she was like, "You guys are kind of weird or whatever," but we didn't really care. I still don't care. I was like, I'll talk to her one on one. She'll really meet me. She'll really talk to them, and we'll get close. Um, After that night, we became close. Us three became really close. Whenever we were able to hang out, we hung out. Alan then told me, he sent me aside. He said when we were walking to the pool one day, he was like, you were the really only one that reached out to me, and I didn't believe him. I was surprised. you know. Well, I suspected that would be his reality. I had assumed based on also being in high school and knowing so many people certainly surpassed how many people I knew in high school coming in and people he knew coming out, that there would be someone. No one in the school of 3,200 kids, of over 3,000 kids, talked to him, invited him somewhere, asked him how he was doing, except me. That made him very angry. That made him very, very bitter, very frustrated. I comforted him when I could, but I also reminded him how I warned him of this, how this feeling would go, how this would make him feel, how he had to try to understand to prevent the anger and the heartbreak of that reality, a reality that I have faced many times and still face to this day. That that's who he is. That is what the reality of the situation was. Excuse me. He became very angry, very emotional, but nonetheless, we still helped each other. Um, I remember I introduced him first to Reagan and Sonny. All four of us hung out, and we became a close group. They enjoyed the energy he brought. I was usually very happy, but I was much happier when Alan was around with us. because I had to kind of be more of like don't do stupid shit role for Sonny and Reagan because those two were wild when they were together. Um, and I was very stoic as I always am, always thinking about everything and nothing at the same time. Never, always never sleeping, always thinking. And when Alan showed up, none of that mattered. None of that mattered, and all four of us had a splendid time, no matter what. We did that for a while. Then Reagan officially left. I believe it was around this time. Believe so. Believe so. Because that was when I also was in discussion about Alex bringing him into the group with him. And I told him, I said, you're going to really like Sunny. You're going to really like Sunny. I know you already met Reagan. You're already cool with her, but you're going to really like Sunny. I feel like Sunny's going to just connect with you. He was like, I don't know. I called it. People don't understand how smart I actually am, or actually how calculated. I'll rephrase calculated. Everything I do is calculated. Everything I've done, even my mistakes, were calculated mistakes. Mistakes that I still let go through because I wanted to see what would happen and then take it upon there and what lesson could be out there to be learned. Every choice that I've made is very calculated. Every possibility, almost every possibility, has always been seen. I had told Alan because we had talked the most, and I said he's gonna really connect with Sonny. Sonny's gonna be that person for him. He's gonna be that person, that dynamic, that person right there. Sure enough, I'll say Reagan was still there. That I was able to get Reagan, Sonny, and Alex to come together as a group. Alan always came late because of work, and he walked down. I finally saw him in the pool, and as bitter as he was able to forget his anger and his pain for a short time to have fun. And I'm glad that he was able to do that. All of us were able to do that. That moment of away from all the bullshit and everything crazy. And then the closer that Reagan had to leave, the sadder Sonny got, which is completely understandable. But I knew because of what I was able to do and build this small friend group so far that Alex and Sonny would hit it off, and in a way that opened up the opportunity for that friendship and that connection to grow. For she couldn't always confide in only Reagan because that's all she did. She would trust Reagan with only that, which I mean, I understood. Like I could see that from the moment I laid eyes on her. Like I knew that was the case. That she would never trust anyone as much as she trusts Reagan. She would never be as close to anyone. That came with time, but also just came with the dynamic they gave. They were very different people, separate, but when together they lit up the room like firecrackers and the the biggest fireworks you could find on the 4th of July. Lit up the room. Their smiles, their laughs, their silliness, their antics. I enjoyed it. It was a fun time. And yet, there were times during those times I would just stop and think, and my sick mind would race and race and think of all these things. Don't know what, but the anger that I thought that I knew never left my body, I felt it boil. felt it boil under my skin, like it feel like it was rising to the top. And I'd always check my mouth because it feel like there was blood or something coming out of my mouth, the corner of my mouth, like it was leaking out. My chest would hurt and it would rise like a water level. It'd feel like blood just coming out. It'd feel like that. It'd feel in my throat, just everywhere. In my tips of my fingers, from the bottom of my toes to the top of my head, I felt that rage that never truly left, just subsided and spread out, and it was there when it needed to. Even talking about it now, I can feel it boil. What was I angry at? I don't know. I have no hatred towards anybody. Not my parents. I don't hide any of my problems. I'm very open. I don't know to this day. But you'll see as I continue to recap this year that this is a reoccurring theme for me. They would always ask me, "What are you thinking about?" And I told them the same answer: everything and nothing, everything and nothing, which was true. They never understood it. I don't think they understand it until much later. They might understand it now. I don't know. But I always told them everything and nothing. What specifically? Specifically, everything and nothing. A very specific answer for anyone who understood, but too general for those who didn't. A very sick mind I had. I don't know. I still do. Still feel it in me that I'm not mentally well. Don't know what it is. It doesn't feel like depression. It doesn't feel like anything else. But I don't know. As I recap through these memories, I'll probably find out. Yo, probably everybody else, someone out there watching will know exactly what it is. Eh, in assembling this group of friends that I was able to do in the summer, I was able to then get close with Megan. With Megan, I got close to her, and I was able to truly be able to talk to her and get to know her better. I had met Megan 1,000 times before, just like I had met, just like I had met Sonny 1,000 times more, Reagan 1,000 times more before, Alex 1,000 times more, Alan 100 times more. I'm only 16, but I've ran into them before. But in saying that, they're all very special in their own unique ways, and that's why I wanted to keep them as friends because and me being a different individual, they were a different individual, and we kept us unique, and they didn't try to silence our uniqueness. Megan was particularly more general in the sense that she was a very damaged person. Very damaged person. I've said that on here multiple times. When I told her, I said, we need to, I want you to introduce you to the group. This group I made, this tribe, as my mother would call it. She, based on the negativity and based on who Alex was at the time, I had sensed what was going to come. And I wanted to see if it would truly test this group. If it truly, this is a friend group that would be for life. I truly wanted to see what would happen. I had told Alan this too, as he introduced me to it, as we've heard stories, she's told stories, as we've talked to her, as I have talked to her much more than he did, and she had trusted me to tell to certain things that I knew because of that negative energy, the toxicity within her that wasn't always her fault. She would latch on to Alex, who Alex was just in a hard time, a dark time. And I told him, I said, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. It's going to be a very hard time right now. She will latch on to him, and she will follow, and she will, and not only in a way influence, but in a way egg on and continue a dark path that he is on, in her own fucked up way or not. It wasn't. Was it malicious? Absolutely not. Was it intentional? No. But hurt people, and she wasn't a hurt. She was a hurt person looking for someone else hurt. Remember when the night before we went to the mall and we were like, "Hey, uh, you know, I called her. She was going over sad, depressive episodes. She was like, "Hey," I was like, "What's wrong?" She was like, "I don't know if I should go to the mall with y'all." I'm like, why is that, man? For 3 hours, I kid you not, from like 10 p.m. to 1 p.m. She had made up every single excuse except a meteor hitting the mall or a dinosaur walking through and eating us all or something crazy that 2020 would cause about why we wouldn't like her or why she would ruin the time, why she would do this. And yeah, what she didn't understand was I met her already. I had met people like her. I've met 1,000 Megans before her. So I knew exactly what to do. I could match that same speed, the same with the same energy for 3 hours straight because I have that patience with them. And I went on for 3 hours with logic, nothing but logic and understanding. After 3 hours, she ran out. I said, "All right, now go to bed. We're going to go have this fun time." She had a fun time. We did. We all had a great time. But in that time, I did notice that my theory was correct and absolutely correct in the sense of, excuse me, that she did latch on to him. She latched on to him quick. From then, I knew it was over. I knew that shit was going to get real. We had created this group chat, multiple group chats that failed miserably. I remember whenever we would talk about something, she would make it negative, or he would make a joke, one of his sad, depressing jokes about his life, and it was funny at the time. Got a little bit annoying, but I mean, it wasn't. He moved on. It wasn't his entire life. She would latch on to that and egg it on. She would egg on toxic behavior, and she would do all that. And it was the point where it really affected Alan. In my arrogance, I just assumed that he could handle it because we'd been together so long. I'd warned him. Then again, I forget. He didn't listen to me the first time. He got annoyed. He was like, "Hey, you guys need to relax," as he had every right to. They did not. So I removed them from that group chat and I separated them from each other and from the group and really said, "You all have to relax. I will add you back later. You two need to relax." And though this, I learned more about Alex and I learned more about why he was the way he was, why he thought the way he thought, who he was before we met him, before he even came to the area. We had a conversation about that. It was a good one. For a while, I would never have that conversation like that with Alex again. He was never a man about emotion. Then again, neither am I that much. Megan understood she was toxic. She apologized, but I mean, she was a follower. She was the typical person to confuse people pleasing with servitude. And there's a big, big difference with that. Um, this was a continuous theme throughout. She would follow him. She was, I wouldn't say obsessed, but my God, did she want her son Alex? My God, she wanted some of Alex, dude. She followed that boy. She would follow that boy anywhere to the end of time. Remember, he got fed up with it when he was trying to truly get better. She never really tried to get better that much. She would, I remember, you know, hearing things because they had talked obviously outside of me, obviously, because I created this friend group. They would talk outside of me. They would talk outside of the group's interaction with us, at the calls with all of us. She would talk, they would talk, they would talk. And she would always confide in Alex as she would confide in me, but except she confided in Alex more because she liked him more. Remember Alex getting sick of it one time. I remember a situation happened that it's not my place to say really. I will save that story for another time. But a situation happened, and he was basically in a way leading on Megan. We kept telling him not to do it. We kept telling him to do it because this was the time where also she was like, we were all getting sick of how toxic she was. And it was just like, I have patience for her. I can last. This friend group won't. And I know it won't last. I know Alan was already ran out of patience at this point and had pushed her away. I remember Sunny never really took a good liking to her because of the fact of how she got close with Alex and understood Alex better than understanding any of us, really. All this in the summer. I remember all this happening. It was a wild, wild time. It seems so long ago. I had made many relationships and made many friends. It was overall an okay summer at that time. It was a summer to it was very interesting. Ninth grade summer into 10th grade was a very interesting summer. And they had all, and there was a time, a really hard time that I call the summer depression. And I bring that back because not only was Alan dealing with his own demons as well, Megan brought out a dark side in him, a dark side that I knew existed. I had been waiting for to come out for a long time. Alex was Alex at that time. Megan was Megan. Sunny had her damaged times because she had no longer had Reagan to confide in. And all I remember is I remember keep telling myself, I have to be strong. I cannot be sad with these people. I cannot go down. I cannot let this take me down as well. One, because I held myself to a higher standard. It's okay to feel emotion. I just knew I had to be strong for them at that time, so it didn't have to be pessimistically depressing all the time. And it really did test my mental fortitude at that time. It drained me, drained me, drained my endless tank. It really tested me. My mother was concerned. She was concerned. She thought I was going to kill myself. I said, no, I have too many people here I'm here for. She really thought I was going to kill myself. I wasn't harming myself, none of that. But I always thought about killing myself. But I mean, it's just a thought. I've always had, like, it's been a daily thought. I think nothing of it at this point. She was just like, you know, are you okay? And all that. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. They're very angry, very sad. Yes, I know, but they're good people. All they need is just someone who won't quit on them. I just happen to be the foolish enough to try to be that person. A very tough time on my heart that was. It was very strenuous time. And I don't say that to be a victim or to make any of my friends feel bad. because I'd do it all over again. Because I do love them that much, and I would do it all over again. A strenuous time, though. Strenuous, a very strenuous time. Never really talked to them because, well, I mean, what could they done? What could have they done? What could have they done? Stopping? I just be happy? No. Feel how you feel. Be sad. I'm good because I know it's real. Don't fake it like you usually fake it because they knew they couldn't fake it around me because I always picked that shit up. Even if I didn't always call them out. Because a lot of times I didn't call them out on their sadness. They'd be like, oh, I'm fine. Oh, I got away with it. And you didn't. I knew every time. I knew every time you were sad and every time you were happy. And every time it was fake. And I knew which smile was always fake. I knew which smile was always genuine. I'd seen it all. I'd seen it 1,000 times in all the forms. I'd always seen it. I'd always seen it. And all this during the summer. All this during that summer. As the summer months went on, the group did fall apart in a sense. Alan got more emotionally, like, as a man who wore his heart on his sleeve, and I commend him as one of his best qualities. It's also one of his faults in the sense of when he gets in that mode of emotion, he's void of logic. It doesn't sound like to him. Yeah. Again, I thank God for the patience that I've been able to learn, the patience I've just been naturally given with people. I am truly thankful for that. If nothing else, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for that I am able to hold steady with that level of patience. I continued to, Megan went her separate way from the group in a way. She wasn't really hanging out with us that much. Um, I remember realizing that this group had been made. They had all had their personal connections, and I did not. So I was like, "Oh, okay. So I can take my step back now." I took a step back, and I said, "Let y'all do that. Let y'all have that friend group." Um, remember August struck around. Yeah, no. The night that we all were tripping was August, and this all taking place throughout the school year. Going into September, it was my birthday month. School had started. We were online. I was very rough grading. I was failing 2 classes at C's, and the rest wasn't worried because it wasn't hard, but I mean, it was just confusion because it was all new. Still had patience with myself. I knew it was going to be fine. I remember in September that it was a weird time, that because of what happened with my father, he got in a lot of argument with his family in the sense of they kept questioning her true, like, they had always never had a good relationship, and she had gotten the biggest argument with them, and they just said stop talking to him. I then remember that side of the family finally finding my podcast. I was about 30 episodes in. 30 episodes in. And my aunt, who was very religious, sent me this long paragraph, about how she would want me to stop cussing. The family didn't like it, they ain't wanted to watch it. My mother took that very personal. Took that very personal. I simply just kept it professional. Said I would not do that because it is mine. It is the first thing that is mine. If you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. And I kept it pushing. Created a lot of anger. And to prove a point, I showed them I could do an episode with without cursing. Episode 30. Religion, cuss words, and philosophy. I had very fun with that. I had fun with that because that was when school started. And school started. There were two classes I took a very interesting liking to. Geometry was all right. It was my first class. Business, pretty straightforward. I wanted to learn more on the business side because I have a personal business. Physical science, was pretty straightforward. I was supposed to be in chemistry, but it got full, so I had to go to physical science. Band was pretty straightforward. I made it to the top band after prodding and working my ass off to make it to the top band and being like, I'm here because I want to be here and I deserve to be here, not because of the fact of I'm not good enough. I'm here. I didn't want to be in the second band and I didn't want to learn the same shit I was always learning. I wanted to learn something completely new. I wanted to be a task. I wanted to be hard. So I worked my ass off and got to the top band. I enjoyed that, but it was online, so it was really weird. Fifth period was literature. And I believe literature I talked about it was there were moments looking back. I remember episode 29 I talked about the Bible and stereotypes. We did a work assignment about stereotypes. It was a very interesting thing to look at. Then sixth period was world history, by far my favorite class that I've ever had because it's very interesting. Religion, Eastern philosophy. That was when I did the episode 30 in September 15th. Yeah. Uh, that group I've always had still stood steady. It was the main group was me, Sonny, Alex, and Alan. Megan was here and there, and Reagan had moved away. But the main core, that was us, the main core. I remember, I remember my birthday, September 28th, turning 16. It was a very interesting weekend. I got the guitar. I was planning on uploading on my birthday. For some reason, I just didn't. Well, it was on school day. I remember it was on school day. It was on school day. But I was tired. I think it was just, I don't know. I don't know why I didn't. But the weekend before was a fun weekend. That was a good time in my life. That was a good time. People like to be able to point out the negatives. I'd point out the positive. It was I got the guitar the weekend before, the day before my birthday party. We went to the main event, and the people who showed up were Makai and Miles, who have always been a staple in my life since like I was small. Before I was small, like we grew up practically. We basically grew up together. Makai, Miles, Alan, Sunny, Megan, Becca. This was right before. This is actually the last time I was able to have a conversation with her, and actually about the second time going out in person. And then an old friend, Haley, was there anyway. She showed up for the party last second. That was a fun night. We just bowled, laughed, had fun, talked about life, whatever. You know, I had built in a way this old small community of friends for life, for each other. more less for me, but for each other purposely. Um, and that was a good night. Moving on to October, uh, school had officially come back uh, in person officially. It was, we were all, people were very nervous for some reason. They were excited, they were nervous. I wasn't. I was like, this will be when my grades start turning up. I needed this because of my grades. I had all season that two Fs. My mom was freaking out on my butt. I told her already. I said, "Look, when I go in person, you'll see it rise." And that's all I kept telling her. When you go in person, you'll see it rise. Go in person, you'll see it rise. Don't worry. We'll see it rise. 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 Um, sure enough, we went to school. My grades started going up tremendously. Remember, band was always that was like a C's, and then the 1A was band because how could you fail band? Um, band went up, everything went up to B's, A's, and it fluctuated up and down, but it primarily stayed the baseline of A's and B's. I noticed because of this whole isolation thing that the ability and the fear of socializing, of the ability to socialize with people, a lot of people had left, and the courage to socialize had left. Truly, fear was the new disease. Fear, a common fear, a disease that I despise more than anything, had dominated the world, but my world as well. But as on the global scale, that was the main disease. It took over. It took over and it infected every person who let it infect them. And it separated us. It stripped. It had this. It disguised itself as COVID. And it did the same thing COVID did. Stripped us of family gatherings, isolated us from the world, isolated us from each other. Had trust issues. Not wanting to be near people. It isolated everyone, and it was fear. I had been said fear was the new disease. Guess that's one of the things that people miss when they say 2020 was a bad year. Or 2020 is what he calls fear, 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 fear. People never talk about that, but it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest disease and biggest thing that it brought out of people. And they just call it COVID, but in reality, it's more fear than anything. Um, the more we went into the school year, and the more we went into this friend group, going into November, but before November, it was Halloween. 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 It was just maybe they were still depressing times, but it was Halloween. It was Halloween. I knew Halloween was gonna be something special. It had to be something great, something grandeur, something that would take us all away and be like, we're gonna go have a fun time in this group. It was then that Sonny and Alex, who had gotten closer than ever, had decided to add two more people. Alex's friend named Oria, some guy from Eastern Europe, I believe, that went to our school, and a cool guy named Joseph. I had never met him. I said, bring him. Brought him. They were two very cool people. They don't really talk to them that much, but they were cool people. I remember that night went very south. It went very south. It was supposed to be a good night. I remember we started off trick or treating, but Sunny was still very sad at that moment. She was rushing us along, rushing us along. I remember I walked slower than everybody. My knee was jacked up because I'm old. I'm an old man and I cracked and my knees cracked all the time and it couldn't run. I couldn't just keep up. So I walked slow. Alan walked along beside me. And I said, Alan, let's spend the night. No matter what happens, if this gets toxic, we'll leave. And we agreed. Secretly, if it got really bad, we would leave early. Didn't matter what we were doing, we would leave early. We'd walk home, be like, we're going home. We'd have a fun time with just us two. When Sunny was rushing us trick or treating, it ruined it. It ruined it. Everybody each, I guess, had their own moments of the night. Then Megan asked this question that sparked arguments, or made her feel targeted, I should say. She said, "Hey, if we were all in a horror film, who would die first?" All of us unanimously said her because she had done things and would do make stupid decisions and would follow people. Um, and because she would follow who and wouldn't really think for herself and all that stuff, she'd be the type of girl to go in there and go investigate for stupid shit. We said that, jokingly, but also being kind of serious. Like, you're the type of girl to be like, "Hello, is anyone there? We're in here." She didn't like that. So it was targeting her. She said the truth. You asked the question, we honestly answered it. You would be the one who would do that. You'd be the one who would be like, "Oh, I die. You die first." Like if we were all in the woods at the lake with Jason Voorhees, he would be able to kill you first. She didn't like it. She got very bitter about it. She got very kind of snippy about it. But we all stood by what we said. I still stand by it to this day. I still stand by it. As we continued throughout the night, Sunny got more out of her own head. She was upset about some stuff. I tried to make her feel a little bit better because I never really ate candy, so I gave her all my candy. Oh, excuse me. Uh, After trick or treating, we went to like the tennis courts and we just chilled there. And I remember Megan, Alex getting very, very negative, very, very toxic, and I felt that anger in me boil again, boil my blood open. I wasn't getting angry at them. I wasn't feeling angry. I feel like I wanted to yell at them, tell them to shut up. Didn't want out no helpers. I just felt it boil, and I felt it boil, and I just walked away. I walked away and I took a breather, and they all didn't see me disappear. I just disappeared into the night. Left for 2 minutes, came back because I knew it was affecting me negatively. Alex and Megan at that time, Sunny too. They all that energy did that was I felt it. It was killing me. Just felt like it was taking off. It was feeling like it was almost like stabbing the years off of my life. So I had to walk away. Like I said, excuse me. Even now, I feel it in my heart. I feel it in my heart. How angry I feel. I don't feel it, but the anger in my chest, making it hard to breathe, making it feel every single bit, every single pain. But it's not towards anyone. There's no anger or resentment against Alex, Sonny, Megan, Alan. None of them. I love each and every one of them. I wouldn't change a damn thing about them. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I then Megan and Alex started lighting. He always brought matches with them. That was his thing. Light shit on fire. Why we didn't know. He just did. This wasn't the first time he lit shit on fire, but whenever he did it, Megan was always there, of course, riding his coattails and being like, hey, it's okay, it's not a big deal. And I'm like, no, don't light shit on fire. And Alex started lighting shit on fire because, he was Alex. And it affected Alan immediately. I was like, that's when I knew we had to go. Sooner, I guess God or whatever the hell heard me because Megan had to leave. Then Joseph, then Sonny. Me and Alan said, all right, we'll head out. We walked and we talked about that night. And that night was just ruined for us. He dressed up as Iron Man. I dressed up as the Wandering Traveler, a character I developed in quarantine, as along with the podcast, along with learning the harmonica. You know. And it was a very, very interesting night. We went home, we ate junk food, and we had a fun time. That was a fun night as well. And we both fell asleep. Then we woke up, cleaned up a mess, talked about whatever the hell. Talked to this girl on FaceTime for a good 30 minutes. That was it. Moving on to November. You know, the more the winter months continued, the more toxic it, it slowly became better, but then there were moments of great toxicity and emotional unstableness, emotional instability. Um, and Megan, I don't want it to make it sound like this girl Megan is an awful person. She's not. She just had a lot of issues to deal with. And the more the months come closer, the better I can truly remember these moments. So they're better stories to tell. I remember I could tell when Megan still trusted me the way she used to trust me, the way she was like, well, was one of her closest friends, I guess, at the time. She one time just sent me a picture of her, of just her carving her name in a very artsy fashion into her leg, just randomly for no reason, no context, no nothing. This beautiful thing. And I was like, how did you do that? She said, with a knife. And she had carved it in her leg. Big capital, like extravagant letters. I fussed at her a little bit for doing that because I'm like, there was no reason you did that just to do that. And I don't understand why. And the more that toxic shit happened, the more it affected me. And this is what I mean by I'm not mentally well because I always say this joking around, but this is the honest to God truth. I look out for everyone and no one looks out for me. I say that, then the first reaction of my friends is like, hey, I'm always here for you. You know, half of them say it because it's a courtesy. It's the right thing to say. It sounds pretty. They don't mean it. They don't mean it like I mean it. I mean it, otherwise I wouldn't say it. Um, like at the end of the day, my phone will still be dry. No one would text me. Just like no one texts me now, no one texts me back then, no one texts me back ever. It's what it is. It's just my reality, my life. I understood that and I accepted that. And I'm expected to give and give and give and never really expected that. It isn't sour grapes, it's just the reality of the situation. I remember one time I had this discussion. I put up a joke. It was a comic about this guy saying, I'm gonna end my life. I want to kill myself. Life this sucks. And it was him crying. It was a little cartoon. And next frame, there's a guy with a gun in his mouth. He sighs and puts it down. It says, and comforts him. And I just put, that's me. Story of my life, lol. And I remember getting a call from Megan and Alex lecturing me about it. Lecturing, not talking to see if I was okay, lecturing me about it. Because she said it came off as I was begging for attention. At the time, I bit my tongue because I knew if I said what was on my mind, it wasn't meant to hurt them. It was the truth, and if I said it, they would be destroyed. So I did. I still think about what that would happen that night if I were to say what I wanted to say. I talked about on the podcast what I would have said, but I said that's all you two do. And they kept saying, you say we're here for you, and I say you two are not mentally fit. You two can't help me. What can you help me with? You can't help me with anything because you two can't even help yourselves. They took offense to that. And I said that with love, and I said that with endearment, and I said that because I was a friend, and I would say that nothing but the truth to them. They weren't ready. They were ready. At that time, they were never ready, especially Megan. Megan tried to say, I dealt with Vivian, I dealt with toxic people. Who toxic was a toxic ex-friend of hers. I'm like, well, again, you can barely handle your own problems. You push them off. Matter of fact, you don't deal with them. It is the same. I gave this analogy 10 times over, and I'll give it the same way again. It's like if you had a project due for every single one of your classes that's due tomorrow, and I call you and say, hey, can you help me with mine? How selfish, how self absorbent that would be to do such a thing. And I'm like, why would I do that? And I told him, I said, I love you. And when the time comes and I see that you can help me, I will tell you. But until that moment comes where you two can start dealing with your problems, I cannot tell you, and I will not tell you. And I can only give you, and they were like, then stop complaining, insinuating that they were the only two that I was talking about. I was just saying this, acknowledging the fact that it was me. That's the reality of my life, not the fact that I wanted attention or a pat on the back. Just the reality of my life. So, yeah, very interesting. I never truly talked about that with them, but it's very interesting. Don't, it's happened either October or November. And I always say, I keep saying things like, oh, back when Alex was like this, I'll give you an example. I talked about this, and actually, when I, if my memory serves, yes, this happened in August, actually, because I kept on staying at the house some kind of miles. Again, the more I talk about it, the more I get the timeline messed up. We, we all were supposed to go to the mall. Between me, Alan, and Alex. Alex couldn't make it. And Alex would be, hothead. He was angry, much angrier than he was now. He's more at peace with himself and with life. He was much, he was much anger in his soul. It was easier to get to him, much more quick to violence. He's very angry about something. He never told me to this. To this day, I don't know what he was angry about. But I was just making stupid jokes like I do. And he basically just pours his entire life story. He just gave this whole 2 paragraphs about him calling me narcissistic, egotistic, whatever. And I responded in that video. I don't think he ever watched it. To this day, I don't know if I want him to watch it. I'm not going to take it down because what I said is prominent and it didn't call him out per se. It's just a thing I call out people who are like that and be like, don't think the world revolves around you because it does not. Um, And it was a very interesting time. I say interesting to all these times because I learned a lot from these times. But that bled over to November, and that was when Alex started getting better. He got really more away from Megan. He became super close with Sunny, as I foretold. And as I foretold, and I kind of just at this point I had backed off from the group. I was still part of it, but Never shit was always toxic with them, and I just left the group chat. Left the group chat. They had created like three or four, and I just left it. And whenever Megan was on their bullshit and they tried that, I just left. So I'm like, oh, I don't. There's a right way to use your energy, and she wants it for attention. I'm not gonna waste my energy. I have the patience to do it all day. I just rather I have better things to do. And Alex, and then there's a time now. Me and Alex are now back closer than ever. Definitely closer than I've ever been. I then remember making. When was this? Yeah, November as well. I remember through after talking to him a couple times, I was up one night, just up, and I was thinking, I said, I am thankful for it to all my friends. I am grateful for them. I truly do love them, and I would die for every single one of them, and I mean that to this day. So I created this video. They use it like 260 views on my main page, and it was just a Steven Universe remix song over a collage of all my closest friends, all those memories. And everybody was like, I love you. And I said, I love you all. Y'all keep me here. I got y'all no matter what. I made multiple. I made three. Made one for Thanksgiving and made two because people just wanted to be in it. It was random. It was a random thing. It was just something I did. And and it was a weird way that I did it. It was a weird way I did it, but I did it and I don't regret it. And it was a good time to see all my friends, I said I love you all, and they all were like, the feeling is mutual. And when my mom looking on it, she was like, it's very interesting. And she said she was very proud of this moment. She noticed how, as men, we're not supposed to say I love you to each other because unless we're about to die, basically. Or we're never gonna see each other again or some shit. I never did that. I was just like, I'm gonna say it. If I love you, I love you. I'm not gonna wait till the last minute because I'm just gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. You're gonna know it either way, and I'm just gonna let you know because I don't care. It's not gay or whatever. It's just how I feel. I told all my guy friends as much as I told my girl friends, female friends, I love you. I said, no, I love you. So yeah, the football dude, Javen, big football dude, doesn't really have like a very lovey-dovey family, like all that shit. I told my I said, I love you. I don't give a damn what you or your friends were to say about me. I'm like, oh, you're gay. Okay, or whatever you say. So I always tell them, and they always sit it back. They all sit it back. I'm looking at the comments. There's like 20 comments. Kai, who's been on the show multiple times, he said, "Love you too, bro, no matter what." Megan, the one I always talked about that used me, I rekindled that friendship, and I said, she taught me a lot, even through what she did to me, which I never really talked about that too. She used me, and it hurt for a while, but I was like, what do you expect? When Harrison, who's been on the show multiple times, said, I love you. Matthew, who's been on the show, the Islanders edition, the second episode, I believe. Second or third, one of the very first ones, the Islanders. That was a fun time. Yeah, Lucas was the other Islander I said, I miss you, man. Alan, he was this was like 12 in the morning. I started this at 11. It was at 12, and I was like, hey, man, why you hit me in the feels like that? 12 miles, love you too. I love you. He said, love you, bro. Stargirl, which is Sunny, said, love you too. Joseph said, you really struck me deep with this, love it. And Alex at the time, who never showed emotion, this was the one that made my mom like, holy shit. When Alex said, "Oh my God, thanks, bro. Uno reverse card. You're a fucking awesome human being. Despite all the shit we put each other through, iron sharpened iron, and friendships really stood." Jessica, beautiful Venezuelan girl, put up two hearts. Elon, who told you I love you all the time. He said that. Tamel said, "I love you too." Seth, who I grew up with for such a long time, since goddamn near birth. The hell. And be like, shut the fuck up. I'm not crying. You're crying. And they're just saying, yeah, we're crying. We all crying. Sad. My friend Jordan, who I've known since I was two, say, love you too, bro. And I was just like, I love each and every one of you. And then I made one that was more closer to home. You know, I put in the Globetrotters, the people who made this. There's a second one that made the documentary of me back when eighth grade, going into ninth grade. Mr. John Hershon, the Globetrotters, specifically Bull and Zeus, you know, Derek, my mom and dad and all that. I put my friend Lotus, put Chris Handles, which is another Globetrotter in there. I put my friend Daly, put my friend Jeannie, who said she was thankful for me. Put my friend Rishi was my friend Destiny. So many people that truly changed my life for the better. My friend Zach, and it was a fun time. Just looking at it, just looking back at it. A very good moment. 2020. I mean, and last but not least, December. December. Even though as soon as it was, I don't remember much. I remember school, and I remember not talking to that friend group for a long time. I talked to some here and there, but I truly didn't have a conversation with them. And I remember Sunny texting me out of the blue, which I thought she didn't like me anymore because I left the group chats. So I was like, thought she didn't like me. She just said, I miss you. We need to hang out. I miss you. And I was like, I miss you too. We do need to hang out. Because I have no resentment against anybody. I just had to leave because it got too much. I felt myself dying. I felt myself truly dying. Like my life was losing years of my life because I felt that in my hearts. And you know, it sounds dramatic and it was like exaggeration, but that's how I felt. It felt like I was getting stabbed, and I had to leave, or I felt like I was gonna die in some way or another. we had hung out, and I was just like, and we kind of just hit it off. Alex was, again, really close with Sunny, so much closer. It's like hilarious. Um, Reagan had finally come back, and she's now at this time she's now staying back here for the rest of school until further notice, I guess. So if we're gonna have her back, she's now back now, but she was coming all the way back like 2 days before, 2 or 3 days before Christmas. You know, I talked more to Alex on a one-on-one scale. I talked to Megan more on a one-on-one scale about how her feelings and what it meant to be a good person, what it meant to change, and just more conversations about that. Ambition, all that. Talk to Alex more about stuff. He expressed how he felt about me more and more. He brought up, he talked more about his feelings, and I was just like, okay, I had no doubt there's no anger towards him, there's no hatred, but I am down. I am down to hang out with them. And I said, whenever you guys want to hang out, just ask me, I'll say yes. Just ask me, I'll say yes. Um, Christmas Day. Christmas Day. Christmas Day was a fun day. Christmas Day, I woke up really early. My dad came over. It was a small Christmas, and I posted on my Instagram. I got two video games. I got a computer that I'm actually using that, with the proper lighting looks really well. Um, I got a necklace, got a Corey Kenshin hoodie. I don't know if you kind of see that, the Corey Kenshin necklace. You know, the one YouTube that I had always watched in the beginning. I always loved him, man. He reached 8 million by the end of 2020. 10 million's gonna retire, so that'd be interesting. Um, I had gotten $200, and the biggest thing that I didn't ask for, but I got was Alan Watts, the book on the taboo of the knowledge of oneself, of knowing who you are, and an Eastern philosophy book on the art of war and other Eastern philosophies, known as The Art of War, the Tao Te Ching, Confucian Analects, the Great Learning, the Doctrine of the Mean, and the work of Menzi. Like I talked about the last episode 39. Each of each one of those each one of those books, as far as the chapters and what I've learned without the book and what I've read so far. I've read a little bit more, not that much new. I'll get to you there on the other parts. Then came New Year's. New Year's, the one to cap off this very strange time and strange year. That was a night that was very interesting. It was a very interesting night. For me, I'll have to say New Year's lasted, for me in my mind, lasted 3 days. It lasted 3 days. The reason why I say it lasted 3 days is just for me is because it was a realization. And I feel like once I upload this video, that will be the start of my New Year's. Going the recording, it's the 4th of January in 2021. This will be the beginning. I had been invited. I had no idea what I was gonna do for New Year's. New Year, no idea. I was like, I had no idea what I was gonna do. I then asked them. I said, are y'all willing to have me hang out with y'all? Are y'all willing to have me with y'all? And they said yes. They said yes. And I was like, okay, cool. It's gonna be Alex, Reagan, who I was the first time I hadn't seen in months, Sonny, and me. Us four. We're gonna hang out, have a good time. We got there, and it was good to see him, and we had just a fun time. We went out and Walked around this lake, and they found this bridge. We sat down, and then it's funny. They handed me some gift. They handed me this card. I was like, "What is this?" And he just opened it. It was like, "I got something for you." And it was a card, and it said, "Our deepest sympathy." And I was like, "What is this?" And it was our deepest sympathy. That basically was a joke, but it was also very just like, oh, we know by the ones that you love. We care about you. Are ripped to your dignity. And I was like, "What do you mean ripped to my dignity?" He was like, "Because you're hanging out with us." That you're hanging out with us, which was adorable. It was sweet of him, and I said, "Thank you. It means a lot." And it was just like, "You were losers, and you're kind of cool." Like, uh, and I love every single one of them, and I thank them for that night. And now I enjoyed that card. I still have it. I'm probably going to keep it in my room somewhere. It's still in my room. I haven't thrown it away. We walked around and just talked and laughed and had fun. Then we had to be home at Reagan's house around 9:30. We just were in the garage and we just talked about, had played fun games and just talked about life. And then we went on Omegle for the last 4 minutes and we kind of a little bit almost missed the countdown. We said, "Oh, Happy New Year, everybody." We made it together. We took photos. I uploaded them. Alex dyed his hair. They painted one of my nails, which is probably what you guys have been seeing for a long time. I've been slowly trying to pick this thing off. It's been stuck on here since that day because my mom didn't have nail polish at the moment. Um, it was overall a good night. We all got closer. We all relaxed. We all had fun. It was, and um, it really solidified that this group that I had been able to assemble, it's had its bump and bruises. It's had its bumpy rides. It's had its breaks, its repairs. But the main ones who stayed, stayed. And that's the group. Me, Sonny, Alex, Reagan. The main four. Alan, if he ever forgives Alex, because he's welcome back. But us four were the main ones. And it was a time I will never forget. It is a time I cherish. And the reason I say it lasts a couple nights, it wasn't just one night. It was, whoops, I was dropping my phone. Was because of the fact that we had talked that night. We talked a couple nights after the entire thing. And like I said, remember how I said a while back that me and Alex wouldn't have an intimate conversation about emotion for a while. We had a one-on-one conversation. After Sonny had to go to bed, Reagan went to bed. After we were all talking about things we like about each other, things we didn't like each other, or whatever. People we knew, all that stuff, just fun games. And me and Alex had this one-on-one conversation. We became really close to that. We learned much about ourselves, and we showed our appreciation for each other. I believe he's sharp. She keeps me sharp. He's iron sharp as iron. That man, he is someone that I would, whether we agree or disagree or whatever, we disagree on a lot of things, but I can agree that that man, he is sharp. He's special. Whether he sees it or not, that man is special. I believe that man is capable of something great. I believe that. I believe Sunny can light up any room. Fucking ironic that it's funny her name is that because her energy can light up any room. Her and Reagan are like the positive Power Rangers. Can make any person smile. Can make any dark room light. Put those three together, they will make the darkest day bright. I am glad I met them. I do not regret everything that happened this year. I wish if it happened, I would make it happen all again for it to for the way it went. Because without the way everything went for them, for us as a group, it wouldn't be where we were now. And now, as I finish my recap of this year, when I upload this video, this is well over an hour, so it'll be on YouTube only. I implore you to listen to everything I said and take everything I say and let there be, hopefully, there's some logic and some lesson to be learned from all this in your life and in mine. You know, people usually like to give these emphatic, deep, you know, philosophies about how to be better. I came up with this by myself, thinking as I usually do. All you need to do is three things: be you, be true, be happy. Be you, be true, be happy. If you be you to the best of your ability, stay you, purely you. Don't try to be anybody else you don't want to be. Don't be anything you don't want to be. Don't do anything you would want to do. Do what you need and what you must to do to be you. And you must be true. You must be true to others, must be true to your friends, must be true to your family. You also must be true with the most important person for you. That is you. You must be true to yourself first and foremost, because if you cannot be true to yourself, you cannot be true to anybody else. If you can honestly say you can be you and you're true and you can be true, then you will be happy. You do those two, the third will follow, and life will be better for you. You will make peace. There will be a sense of peace and freedom within yourself. The more at peace you are with yourself, the more at peace you are with life. The more at peace you are with life, the more at peace you are with death. The more peace you are with death, the more peace you are with yourself. It's a cycle. Going into this year, I expect hardships, I expect pain, I expect loss, I expect gain, I expect happiness, I expect sadness, I expect glory, I expect destruction. I expect separation, I expect unification, I expect the good and the bad, I expect balance within us and the ability to truly test if you are truly able to be you, be true, and be happy. I'm not gonna say what I think will happen. I don't know what will happen. All I know is that what's happening right now. And right now, what a time to be alive. This was my 2020 in a review in a weird way, I guess. Hope you all tried to have the best year you could. Now, when we all grow old, we have something to tell our children, or for future generations, about this crazy year as 2020. Uh, but just if I could give you any word of advice from a 16-year-old who talks out his ass for an hour and 50 minutes, almost 2 hours, is be you, be true, and then you'll be happy. Thank y'all for watching. Happy New Year. Stay safe. I love y'all. Bye bye.